Go touch some grass.
This game has a 97% positive review score on Steam with almost 3,000 reviews, and it was released in May of 2024. According to SteamDB, it's the 16th highest rated game of 2024, and it's Mullet Mad Jack. This game is crazy. Watching the trailers initially, I thought this game looked like a combination of a couple games I know and love. Firstly, we have it reminded me of Neon White with the movement and how fast-paced the game goes. Neon White, on the other hand, is an incredibly fast-paced first-person shooter where you clear levels as fast as possible in an anime world with 3D platforming. The gameplay of Neon White is top tier, where the story can last you a solid 15 hours, and despite having some very cringy dialogue that gives you secondhand embarrassment listening to it, the game is still one of the best games I've ever played. It's more impressive than Mullet Mad Jack because it also has an overwhelmingly positive review score with almost 13,000 reviews, and it was released in 2022. But secondly, Mullet Mad Jack reminded me of a classic Doom or Quake game with the gunplay. I mean, it is tagged as a boomer shooter, which I didn't even know this tag was a thing until I saw this game. But looking at the tag, it has some very highly rated games like Celico, which recently released, or Ultra Kill, which has been out for a few years. Two games I haven't played yet, but they look incredible. Ironically, Doom doesn't have some of these tags on their games, despite being one of the most popular retro shooter games out there, along with Quake or Wolfenstein. But this video isn't about boomer shooters, Doom, or even Neon White. That's potentially a future project. We're here to talk about Mullet Mad Jack, the game I most recently picked up and played, and was impressed with everything about it. Like I said, looking at the trailers, it reminded me of other great games, but it also showed me how chaotic this game looked. I mean, look at this trailer. There's so much going on and it's so hard to keep up with, but it looks amazing. One of the top reviews compares it to browsing TikTok, and I know for sure everyone seems to love doing that, so maybe y'all love this game. I sure as hell don't love browsing TikTok. The gameplay looks crazy and on par with another great title like Neon White with pacing, but like Neon White, this game has a very weird story and premise, but it makes it more lovable in my opinion. It's set in a classic 80s anime in a world where robots have taken over. You play as a moderator and your goal is to save your anime waifu, that's the best way I can describe it really, as she was kidnapped by a robo-billionaire. We start off fast with this game on floor 1 and your goal is to get to floor 10. Depending on what difficulty you pick will make the game a lot harder, but helps make the game so easy to pick up. We have tons of different difficulties that all change the pace of the game. I played on the challenge difficulty as it was the intended difficulty by the devs, and with that you had 10 seconds to clear every level, or more so a 10-second timer to start every level. You got more time for killing robots inside the level, headshot kills, style kills, and bosses did a little bit more damage. It was a good challenge, and some levels did take a handful of tries. But just in case you don't like the timer with such a fast-paced game, you can lower it down to where you have more starting time, enemies do less damage, and you get more time per kill. Hell, if you don't even want the timer on at all, you could play on no timer mode, which seems to be a classic boomer shooter. But then the opposite option is still there if you're a masochist. You can give yourself less time for kills and have less health items appear. Regardless, the game has about 9 chapters total, and each chapter has 10 floors, with the 10th floor being a boss where you don't have a time limit, you can take as much time as you want. Each one of these floors has you flying through, killing enemies, grabbing melee weapons, and even doing some wall riding later in the game. It's incredibly fast, and playing it, you might not even know what's going on at some times. All you know is you gotta kill people, or robots I guess, to get some time back, because if you run out of time, you go all the way back to your last checkpoint, and you get a checkpoint at the start of each chapter. So if you run out of time once, you restart the whole chapter, which may sound absolutely abysmal, but it isn't that bad because every floor only takes about 30 seconds to a minute to complete. And there isn't really much more to say about the core gameplay, you just kill stuff and go fast. But there is more to the game than that, of course, as between each floor you get to pick between one of 3 upgrades that last the entire chapter or until you run out of time and die once. The upgrades are incredibly strong and quite diverse, I would say. You have guns and gun upgrades, of course, but then you have upgrades that slow down time in your final 3 seconds or give you more time for killing robots in a certain way, like with the environment or a headshot, which is my go-to for killing. Kicking enemies into electrical plates and electrocuting them is satisfying, but nothing is more satisfying than a nice clean headshot. You get upgrades where taking damage lowers less time, or you can even get a double jump. But one thing about this game, it seems like it wants you to replay it. And not just because the game has achievements for clearing every level on 3 different difficulties, but because you unlock new upgrades after every chapter. Granted, the upgrades typically relate to whatever the chapter added. Obviously, the game isn't going to be fully the same in every chapter. It slowly adds more environmental hazards and tougher enemies the further you go. But the difficulty doesn't scale at an unfair rate. Well, at least on the intended difficulty it didn't. But to fully experience some of the best upgrades the game has, you might need to replay it a bit. But that isn't a bad thing because it is genuinely a great time. You could easily beat the main story in 3 to 5 hours. It took me about 5 hours, I would say, but outside of that, they do have an endless mode where you just see how long you can last. And after every 10 floors in the endless mode, you lose all your upgrades and even a second off your timer, which basically means that once you get to, let's say, floor 50, you have 5 seconds of time, so you better be fast and furious. But inside endless mode, you do have 2 other modes you can unlock with Weapon Roulette and Happy Foot, but I haven't unlocked them yet. Listen, I beat this game and wanted to make a YouTube video about it, so I started writing this script instead. Maybe by the time I'm done writing this, I'll have some footage of those modes, but I imagine it's just fast-paced killing action. Mullet Madjacks is one of the highest rated games on Steam, and it fulfilled the craving I had for a fast-paced action shooter game, somewhat like Neon White. I'll admit it has some downfalls with how much is on the screen and how you can easily lose track of what you should be shooting, but the satisfaction with the gameplay loop never got old for me. It's a game I can easily see myself getting all the achievements in because that's what I like to do with my favorite games. It also makes me want to pick up more quote-unquote boomer shooters and see how some of the highest rated games compared to the ones that I've played and loved, with this, Neon White, and Doom, if you can even count that as a boomer shooter. I didn't know what to fully expect with Mullet Madjacks when I initially picked it up, but it's definitely one of the best games that I've played this year. The boomer shooter genre is quite niche, I would say, but it has a lot of great games in it. And that's all, really. Thanks for watching. An extra special shout out to the people that support me on Patreon. That extra support really means the world, so thank you. And yeah, that's all. I'll see you next time.